here, right?
Yes.
Engineer, here, right?
Absolutely.
Election Commission, here, right?
Yes, sir.
And as a bonus, because of people's travel plans and stuff, the public safety bond update is gonna be abbreviated, strategic planning and other business as well. So what I thought we would do is just, kind of like back in school, start at the top and work our way down. So purchasing, garage, budget, review. Because we're recording this, we'll start with, my name is County Commissioner Jim Kavanaugh. I'm Chairman of the Administrative Services Committee. We're meeting here on Tuesday, April 24th, to talk about budget requests from purchasing and garage, engineer, and election commissioner, and other matters. The finance director, Joe Lorenz, has kind of given everybody their mark to hit budget-wise, and thank God most, I think, of our departments and elected officials have done that. So we're glad of that. This is just kind of an informational overview. Those of you that have been around the county a while know what I'm talking about. I have what we did last time, and so if I ask you some questions, it might be, compared to what. But I'd like to just flip something real quick, and I meant to do this on the agenda, and I probably just didn't tell them. But normally in these hearings, we have the elected officials go first, and then we do our departments. And so I'm gonna have the engineer department go first, and then we'll go back to the regular order. So Tom McDonald, I think, is here representing Mr. Doyle.
Yes, I am.
Tom, if you could lead off.
Back.
Okay.
I guess the primary thing you'd be interested in is the portion of our budget that comes out of the general fund. Our budget was $243,212.07, which is 5.47% below our assigned target. Our projected expenditures for everything is $38,284,813. Projected available revenues $40,301,280, which leaves the $2,016,000 and change for the surplus we're requested to carry every year to keep the AAA bond rating. We have a lot of projects going on this year. The 180th Street project, looking at spending about $3.2 million on right-of-way. We've got 14 SID projects, which are normally just street widenings. There's a couple that are actually going to be building new roads over the dirt roads that are there, and we've got 20 projects of our own, including 8 bridge and culvert projects. You want more? Is that enough?
No, just back to that top figure, Tom, when you said you're 242,000, what was the end of that? 242,000 something, something, something.
$212.07.
Okay. And your roads budget was 38, right?
That's a combination of roads and bridges.
Yeah, and you have 40, right?
We're yeah,
okay.
Depending on the budget surplus and what goes and what doesn't.
Right. So I knew this at one point, if I had a better memory, I wouldn't be asking this question, but most of that money, or what's the source of the bulk of that?
The bulk of it's fuel tax money, highway allocation.
Yeah. And so what we're in for in terms of general funds is, kind of your personnel operating, that 242 number, right?
Right.
Okay.
But one thing we do is there's a transfer that comes
Correct.
from the engineers department that essentially offsets the general fund payments. So really, after that transfer on a net basis, there's really not any general fund money that's used towards the engineer or the roads budget.
You know, actually, the transfer this year is $275,000. Joe and I had a talk last fall, and he
Okay, so,
tried to get me straightened out.
so you're gonna transfer 275 to offset 242, right?
Right, that's for all the services we get from the law department.
Okay. And then the balance of that, and Joe, this is probably more in your bailiwick, of that $2 million differential goes where?
$2 million.
Well, you got 40
The
million
surplus.
available, you got 38.3 that's gonna be
Oh, yeah.
expended.
That stays in the roads fund. That's special purpose money, so that cannot be used for anything except roads
Okay, so we carry that forward, basically.
in a separate fund.
Okay. Anything else?
No, I can talk all day, but I'll be
Anything else
stoned if
about-
I talk anymore. So.
About your budget, no, that's great. Did you have any handouts or any handy dandy?
Oh, no, of course
Okay,
not.
no
No,
problem.
I have one.
Oh,
There's
good,
one for you.
thank you. All right, you guys do a great job.
There's one for you.
Please tell the county engineer hi for us, and
I will do that.
I don't know if you've got time to stick around, but if you did,
I'll stick around, I know.
okay, great. Now, that's our elected officials, and, then we're back to regular agenda, which is purchasing a garage.
My name's John Solano. I'm the fleet supervisor for Douglas County Garage. I don't have a whole lot of information as it pertains to purchasing. As you're aware, Eric Carlson's out on medical. What I will do is just kind of go over a couple of the goals and objectives. And then Joe, I don't know if you want to go over any specifics budget-wise. I mean, being on target.
Yeah, I mean,
I don't know if we need
that's
to-
the headline that they're both on target.
Okay. I know that.
That's true of everybody today, isn't it?
Yes.
I know that one of the main projects they've been working on is the barcode inventory at the warehouse. I spoke with Eric last week, and it sounds like that is getting really close to launching. They hired a new assistant warehouse supervisor that has some experience with that, and so it sounds like that will greatly assist in getting that moving forward. Conduct a cost-benefit analysis to launch an online bidding platform in the next 2 to 3 years. And that is in the handout that I gave you. This is just kind of the goals and objectives.
Are you on garage now, or are you?
No, this is still
You're still
purchasing.
purchasing, okay.
Yes.
Got it.
I just wanted to go over a couple of the main top goals and objectives that
Yep,
Eric
yep.
had identified, so. Continue to leverage the migration of the print shop billing system from mainframe to Oracle platform. That I have no knowledge of.
Is there anybody else here from purchasing?
No, there's not.
Okay. Okay.
And work with the county clerk to refine the process to assist county departments with managing county fixed assets, which I know that's something that the garage we deal with on a pretty regular basis. So I'm glad to see that there's something being done there to kind of coordinate efforts with that. Like Joe mentioned, as far as the budget, they are right on target, purchasing as a whole. And I don't know if you've got any questions, I can attempt to answer them, and if not, I will definitely get back with you.
Right, right. This is more for Joe, on that second page, Joe. We got 22 FTEs, 1.3 in expenses, 120 in revenues, and it looks like the revenues are the same for the last 3 years. Why is that?
I guess that's just the way he budgeted. Let's see how they're tracking year to date, and we'll see how that's comparing this year. So purchasing. So this year, which is probably an Eric question, is my guess, that the total revenues actually received are about 382,000, which means that, there's probably about a $200,000 variance over. But that's, I will make a note to follow up with Eric and see.
Could that be like a calendar year versus fiscal year, maybe? Type
I
of
don't
thing?
think so. It must be some sort of payment that they got that they weren't
He's taking my
expecting.
revenue.
He should have been here. Okay.
So,
If you could, Joe, just let me know.
yep,
will
yep,
you?
I will follow up with Eric on that.
Well, and that looks like a very tightly run ship. The last available numbers that we have on those categories are FTEs are 22 now. They were 21 in 15. Budget's 1.3 now. It was 1.29 in 15. Revenues were 180 and 180. So I guess just figuring out what's this revenue thing? I mean, it's somewhere between 120,800, 180, and 382. Consistent, there's an 8 in all three numbers. And I bet you that plays a part.
I'll follow up with them, but he must have got some sort of payment that wasn't budgeted.
Okay, all right. Anything else on purchasing?
No, I don't, Commissioner.
Thank you. All right.
Do you want me to send
Can
you?
I ask Tom a question here real quick?
Oh, sure.
Regarding, do you know if any of those projects you mentioned, do you know if we're gonna have to move any sirens or anything like that?
Not that I know of.
Thank you.
There was, I don't know if this is off track or what, talk of a siren over by where I live that was supposed to be a pine tree siren. Have you heard about these?
I've heard rumors.
Okay. Do they exist, or was that kind of an urban legend?
It's kind of like taking a stick and decorating it for Christmas.
I see.
Wraparound stuff.
Okay. All right. So that's purchasing garage.
Okay, garage.
Name for the
Oh,
record.
John Solano, Fleet Supervisor, Douglas County Garage. One of my top goals, objectives is the county fleet maintenance policy. Something that Patrick Bloomingdale, myself, Daryl Neely have been working on. I know that there's a revised copy draft that's been circulating now. I don't have an exact timeline on when that's going to take place. It's just going to, the current one is from 2002. There was some obsolete language in it and some other things that didn't really apply, and some stuff that we put in the new policy. So hoping to have that in place this year, and again, that will be disseminated out to all the departments that we support. Managed equipment procurement, reassignment, disposal using the cost per mile model. I think that's age, mileage, repair cost, and that. The one sheet that I gave you there is as a fleet right now, we are operating at just over 38 cents cost per mile. The national average is right around 60.8 cents per mile. And the main reason we've been able to do that is we continuously have vendors provide updated pricing, use multiple vendors, vehicle procurement, allowing us to buy newer vehicles, more efficient vehicles. Fuel bids go out, we get the lowest price on fuel, and so when you combine all those things and the efficiency of getting vehicles in and out, it directly relates to the low cost per mile. The next one I've got there, fleet maintenance facility overhead doors and openers. I know that was on the agenda today, and I'm not sure if it was approved. Okay, so those doors and openers were installed on that facility around 1978, and so they were badly needed to be replaced. And so we had that budgeted last year's or this current year budget to purchase and install those. And so those, if it's approved, then we should have those installation begin here hopefully within the next few weeks.
What was the dollar amount on that?
I believe it was right around $79,000 for all new doors and openers, and that was on both east and west ends of the shop, north, south, east, west, every bay door on the maintenance facility.
Okay.
Couple other things, we continue to upgrade our diagnostic software. That greatly minimizes the requirement to send vehicles to the dealership for reprogramming and that. We've done that on both the light side of the shop and the heavy duty side, which has resulted in minimal downtime in reference to once vehicles get pulled out of service for repairs, we're able to get them done and get them back out. And lastly, I'm hoping, and I've kind of talked to Jerry Leahy a little bit about this, is that the next major improvement at the shop there will be a roof on it, because that building was put up in 1913. I believe the roof is about 29 or 30 years old, is what I've been told, and it shows. Any snow, rain, we get some water. But other than that, I've got a great staff. They do a great job, and I seem to think that the departments are pleased with the service they receive, and we hope to keep that going.
I just got a couple for you. You have on here, you know, some of the numbers that I kind of go by. Your FTEs are at 11. They've been that way for some time now, right?
Correct.
No change there. The last budget I'm comparing this to is the last one on here, 1.4 in FY 16-17, and you're basically at 1.4, you know, within $20,000 now.
Yes.
That's it, right?
Yeah, that's it. That's just payroll. Payroll increases. I believe, Joe, over the last 4 years, that's all we've had was the payroll increase.
And your employee base, are they unionized?
They are.
What union are they on?
I've got 8 that are with the Teamsters. I'm sorry, 9 that are with the Teamsters, and I've got 1 that is with the IBW.
Okay. Oh, revenue. And you got revenues at 350, 350, 350. The projected revenue, and this, you know, I don't know what you get revenue from, maybe you can tell us real quick, was a little higher than that. So you did come in at 350 the last 2 years, and you're projecting 350 again this year, is that right?
That is correct. When I started, I believe, Joe, we were right around 500,000 revenue. The garage, our operations is not a revenue driven. The main outsource as far as money that we receive is auction sales, and then in turn the few external agencies that we provide services for. Eastern Nebraska Human Services, Omaha Housing Authority, we maintain those vehicles. What we did to, I guess, help a little bit on the revenue side and really kind of stabilize the labor portion of it, because the county, the way it works is that we're $41.50 an hour labor rate. Well, if we're working on our own equipment, it's really irrelevant. It's all internal money. The external agencies, though, were benefiting from $41.50 an hour. So what we did was, about 3 years ago, we did an incremental increase for external agencies. The last of those increases took in effect January 1 of this year, and they're at $91 an hour for external labor rate,
Really?
which is still significantly lower than the civilian market.
Okay. I had a plumber out yesterday for $100 to open my front door. $100. Anyhow, okay. The basic overall expenses of 1.4, last time I looked, was about 540,000 for payroll, personnel costs.
Yes.
And the balance, $1 million more or less, for all this other stuff. You have not changed that a lot, is that right?
That is correct.
That same mix?
Generally, we end the fiscal year, I would say, Joe, with quite a bit of a surplus. I would like to keep that. That's why I have not said let's drop our budget overall, because we are one bad winter away from me needing a supplemental if I was to drop it. I would much rather get to the end of the year, have a surplus that Joe can take and use and use somewhere within the county, than to drop my overhead budget to begin with, and then again, potentially run into the problem with bad weather where I'm at the end of the budget year looking for additional funds.
So, is that what we talk about when we talk about general equipment budget, or is that?
No, so now the general equipment budget, the 531,000, that is for new vehicle and equipment procurement.
And that seems to be 531,000 every year, pretty
Yes.
much. So stuff drops off and we pick stuff up and.
Correct.
it's
We
just-
buy probably 95% of our vehicles and equipment off state contract pricing, which is significantly lower than we were to get if we were to bid it or get quotes depending on the dollar amount. What that has done over the course of 5 years, our average age of fleet was about 14 years old. And right now, we are sitting at about 7 years average age of the fleet.
That's good. Now that fleet, that's everybody? That's engineers?
No, engineers have they have their separate budget for their equipment. This is everybody outside of the engineers.
course
We
they do.
support every other department within the county off that budget.
Okay, so you're buying the sheriff's department cruisers,
Sheriff's Department cruisers, assessor vehicles,
county commissioner
Right.
cars? Oh, wait.
no. Health center, health department, yes.
So John, how many years have you been running that shop now?
It was 5 years in February this year.
I mean, and John's just done a great job in, when we brought him in, that department had been trending the wrong way in cost per mile, average age of fleet. John came in and really brought that department into the 21st century, instituted some technology. He's significantly lowered the cost per mile, been able to lower the cost, work with that 531,000 and lower the average age of the fleet. And it's become a trouble-free department in my mind, which is a good thing.
Thank you.
Well, we're at the same facility, and I'd have to echo that. John's done a hell of a good job. And we're buying 2.3 million in equipment.
Right.
I think I visited you when you were first on the job, and I park in your stalls a lot when I'm looking at the West Campus construction project, so I hope if you see an old Ford Explorer out there, you don't,
We won't tell it.
anything else from anybody? Anything? Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, election commissioner, Brian.
Okay. Yes, sir. We do have some handouts. Do you want us to hand them out?
Do you want
Just
me to
pass them
email
around?
You
you
can
what
pass
I
them
gave
around,
them?
that's fine.
Okay, and we have extras too.
For
if
this
you wanna
meeting?
take them to other
No, I don't
commissioners
need
or
it.
whatever.
Just- She has it, that's all I care about.
Okay.
So,
Yeah,
I'm looking out for it.
Diane.
Thank you, my
I'm
dear.
thinking,
and then can you give the extras to Diane and she can give them to the other commissioners? So with me today is Justine Kessler, my elections manager, who's been there like 14 years in the elections manager, 10 or 11. And Ty is our budget coordinator, our accounting coordinator. So we'll just,
Justine, is your title?
Elections manager.
elections manager. So we just have a couple slides here, we'll just go through quick, this should be pretty quick and painless hopefully. So this is just, the top is our mission statement, the bottom is our objective. The mission of the Douglas County Election Commission is to administer elections within Douglas County by managing voter registration, selecting and equipping polling places, drafting and hiring poll workers, handling all aspects of early voting, and collecting and distributing election information and results. And then our objective is to conduct fair and accurate elections while maintaining transparency to the public and consistently following state statutes and best practices. The goals of our organization, of the Election Commission, are to make voting accessible to all voters in Douglas County while following state law, provide accurate information and results to all voters in Douglas County, strive toward creating the best voting experience possible for all Douglas County voters, and creating and revising procedures to perform election duties as efficiently as possible. And on the third one there, I just give you a little note to best possible experience, voting experience for Douglas County. Counters, this time we have 2 polling places that are under an enormous amount of construction at 168th and Maple and 168th and Blondo. It's about 3,000 voters. And so we sent all of those voters a letter with a map, and we also sent an early voting request to them, if that would be more convenient to them, to try and alleviate any problems that they may encounter on election day and get out ahead of that, ahead of time. The services we provide are election administration, voter registration, and candidate services. I know that the county commissioners got the report, but we just went through an audit by Michael Dornicky. And he had stated in there that I think it was his words, he felt the election commission was well run. He did offer a couple suggestions. One of them he offered partway through his audit, which we implemented immediately. And he's given us a couple other things to think about, but he found no major errors or omissions. So we were happy about that. And so our budget. We're looking at 1.75 million this year. Obviously, we're not a revenue generating office for obvious reasons. The revenue that we do get is election recovery cost from certain political subdivisions, and that's projected to be $303,000 this year.
Which jurisdictions, Brian?
So we can bill, like in the primary and the general, the state and the federal do not reimburse us for anything. But if like MUD, LPPD, school boards, all of those do, and there's a formula, and we take the total inches on the ballot, and then the inches that they've used. And Ty does all of that. He actually takes a ruler and measures the inches that each political subdivision uses, and then he's got a formula that he divides it out by and then builds them.
So, Ty, this year, if I understand correctly, we have a load of bond issues. And Joe can verify that the boilerplate bond issue language that they want to stick on there can be as long as the Constitution. So, will that drive up marginally our column inches or however you do this in terms of?
For that particular subdivision.
So, say, City of Omaha, Omaha Public Schools, we will bill them for printing up those separate bond things, okay?
Yeah. So it behooves them, from a financial standpoint, to be brief.
Yeah,
I understand legally, sometimes you can't.
Yeah,
but,
I understand, that's how it needs to go around, okay.
And then beyond that, we just have our last slide, which is essentially the revenue detail again. The majority of our revenue comes from billing political subdivisions. There's a extremely small amount of a few $1,000s that we collect from maps, voter files, voter certificates that are $3 a piece. So as you can see, we're not a big revenue generator.
But on this program that we were talking, Ty, about, there was a bump in 16-17 of 712 in these revenues, and then it's 389, and now it's going to be 303. Was there some reason that it was twice as much that time?
In 16-17, we would have collected for the 2016 primary election, the 2016 general election, and the 2017 city.
Mayor's race.
Okay. And we charged it for the whole ballot on the municipal
For
race.
the city.
Yes.
Correct.
Same with Ralston, I suppose, and Bennington and Valley. We do their stuff, right?
Correct.
We count their votes, right?
Correct. So last year we had 4 special elections, and so we bill those political subdivisions for that. So we don't have anything built into our budget for special elections next year. Now, we haven't heard of anything. Now, sometimes political subdivisions have different ideas.
Right.
But in the event that a political subdivision were to have an election, it would end up being revenue neutral, correct, Joe? Because essentially, we bill them for everything we do. We have our employees essentially keep track right down to paper clips and pencils that they use.
Okay.
Literally.
Well, that's good, that's what we like. Now, looking at the FTEs going back, you've been at 13 for some time, right?
We have been at 13 for a very long time. I think in 2000, the number of registered voters was around 269,000. We have 350,000 registered voters now. In 2000, there was no such thing as early voting. We now have a third of the folks essentially voted in the last presidential and early voting, and we only expect that to continue to increase. So we have been at 13. We have some longtime employees there who are very dedicated. We have a great staff. To supplement that, we have temporary employees that we hire for each election. And actually, a lot of our temporary employees have been there longer than some of our permanent employees, to be honest, which is nice because they could come in, sit down, and boom, you know. So yes, we have, as Douglas County continues to grow, and as the number of voters, obviously, we hope will continue to grow. And early voting is a very labor-intensive process because you have to handle a lot of pieces of paper. In early voting, in the 2016 presidential, we handled about 275,000 pieces of paper between requests, ballots going out and ballots coming in. And again, in 2000, we did none of that. And so at some point, if we continue to see a growth in the number of voters, we may need to add a position, but we're surviving at this point.
So, in 16, you said there were how many early voters? Excuse me.
About a third, which amounted to about 88,000, give or take, of those that voted. There was 243,000 total voters. It was about a 70% turnout. And so a third of those essentially were early voters.
Okay. And I think in 15, it was 30%, so it's up slightly from, the 14 election, I guess, would have been reported in 15 to the 16 election. Is that the trend? I mean, nationally, I hear of some states where actually the majority of people vote by mail.
Absolutely. And Washington and Oregon are all by mail states currently. Colorado is all by mail with the vote centers, but about 70 or 75% of their folks vote by mail. Early voting is certainly going that way. People like the convenience of it. Essentially, we like to say they can vote from their kitchen table, study the issues, study the candidates, and do it on their time. Mm-hmm. They're not constrained by 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. on a Tuesday. So it definitely is. In the next presidential, the 2020 presidential, I don't think we'll get to 40% early voting, but I don't think it's out of the realm of possibility, but I think that would be a stretch. But I think we'll definitely see, an increase.
Sure.
Haven't you had some special elections that have been mail only?
Oh, yes. Special elections by state statute, it's up to the election commissioner essentially to determine if those are by mail or their polling place. And we had 4 of them last year. They were all done by mail.
Turnout. SIDs and stuff?
No, school board.
Okay.
Last year was West Side, Bennington, Elkhorn, and Millard. And those special elections were all between 35 and 40% turnout. Mm-hmm. And if you would have done it at a polling place, you'd have been in the teens.
Okay.
Maybe even single digits, but definitely in the teens. So for special elections, you definitely get a much more of the voices heard of the individuals.
So your budget,
Yes.
which is on the good side of Joe's target figures,
Yeah,
is 1.75,
correct.
down from 1.70.
Right.
Way down from 2.7 in 16-17, and that's because
Of the presidential. So our budget ebbs and flows with the election cycle. So next year, in theory, every even year, we have a gubernatorial or a presidential, and then in one of the off years, we have the cities, and the following off year, in theory, we have no major elections.
Okay.
Now, that always can be subject to change, as we all know, but next year should be our quote off year.
So how many precincts do we have?
237 precincts and 220 polling places, so 17 of my precincts are double. They have two,
Mine has.
yep, mine is two at Saddlebrook.
And how many registered voters?
340, about 347,000. I can tell you exactly, I wrote it down this morning, but it's about 347,000. It is 347,240
Okay.
as of the 1st of April.
And we are up, down, in the middle?
You know, we were about 20 or 25 voters shy of 350,000 in the presidential. And then we go through some certain processes where we ensure that our rolls are kept clean with the state. And so we're down a little from the presidential, but we're trending up, actually. The trend is up, even though we're a little down from the presidential.
So, most of that, I presume, I could be wrong, tell me if I am,
Okay.
are dead people.
There's some deaths. Now, we get a weekly report every Friday from the state HHS, and we go in, and then we put them in removable status, obviously, since they're no longer with us. But a lot of that is voters who've maybe moved out of county or moved out of state.
How do we know that?
So how we know that is there's several ways. On a national level, the state participates in they have participated in the past what they call a cross-state check. So there's many states, about 30 some states, and they all exchange information and run it against databases. The state of Nebraska has decided to suspend that program because Mr. Kobach from Kansas has been in charge of that program in the past, and a variety of reasons, some perceived and probably some real. But there's another program called ERIC, which is another cross-state program that the state's looking at and participating in. So that's one of the ways, and that's the main way. And involved in that is they run it against NCOA list, National Change of Address list, to look at those. Now, we do get people that will send us cancellation forms, so there is some of that. And, yeah.
So, what you do is real important, and you guys do a great job.
Well, thank you.
I don't think there's any more important function of democratic government than to vote. So you're kind of like the air supply for democracy. How could we enhance voter registration? And I know you can't do much about voter participation other than making it convenient, but are there registration drives that you run now?
I would start off by saying this. It's hard to nail down an exact number, but I've done some of the numbers this past summer, and in Douglas County, we're somewhere in the neighborhood of 83%-ish of those eligible to register to vote are registered to vote. So we have a relatively low number of individuals who are eligible that are not registered to vote. Our office does not specifically do voter registration drives, but we work with organizations that do, such as the League of Women Voters. We assist them. As a practical matter, I'm going to Central High School tomorrow with the League to register high school students. I participate with them as much as I can, but League of Women Voters, Black Lives Matter, the parties, both parties, county parties. So we assist them with voter registration forms. We do deputy registrar training for them so that their members can go out and train But we don't specifically do voter registration. Now, online, as long as you have a state ID or a Nebraska valid state driver's license, you can register online or update your registration online. And that has been, I think, very helpful in getting folks registered, because you can do it from your smartphones, your tablets, your home computer, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week.
Okay, is that it?
That's it. That's all we have, unless you have any other questions.
Anybody? No?
Commissioner,
Um,
I've got a couple
oh,
questions.
there you go.
The people you have that come in during election season, what controls how much you pay those folks? You just set that, or?
Well, we do. We try and look at the market and see what the market is paying, as well as different jobs in our office, we pay differently. Customer service jobs, because they're dealing with individuals' vital information, is paid more than someone in the warehouse, just simply kind of because of the type of work they do. They're all important, and we couldn't do it without all of them. We did a review of our salaries for our temporary employees right after I came, because we were having a hard time filling our temporary positions, and we felt when you go to Walmart or Burger King, they were paying more than we were. And we pay for our front counter, we pay $13 an hour, and it goes all the way down to $10.50 for the warehouse, or 10 or $10.50 for the warehouse, and then data entry is like 12. So there's kind of a step down, but it's anywhere between 13 and 10. Now, we did implement a program. We do pay 5 cents a year longevity for an hour for our temporary employees some of our temporary employees have been there 10, 12 years.
Sure.
So that gives them an extra, 50 cents or 60 cents,
Right.
just as kind of a little incentive. Our temporary employees and our employees are, I think, respectful and thankful in the fact that, government, the function of government is very important, and it's a service to the citizens. But I think they all understand on all levels that, we're not there to get rich and retire at 50 years old. And so we're fortunate in that aspect.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, you betcha.
One more?
And we're always looking for good temporary employees.
Okay.
You can go to our website, votedouglascounty.com,
Okay.
and we also advertise through the county. HR helps us, and we also advertise on our social media, Twitter and Facebook, when those jobs become available.
Okay, so my name's Hamida. I'm interning with the Douglas County Emergency Management Agency. I'm a student at UNL.
Very
and
good.
I was so interested in the election, process, so I volunteered as a poll worker.
Oh, thank you.
In primary, and I worked the 12-hour shift.
Awesome.
And I noticed that, the people who were working with me, like as poll workers, they were like a regular poll workers. They volunteered, they love it doing it, and they're usually retired people who would love to give back to the city and volunteer their time to do this. Have you guys changed the way that you do that? Or I have another question also, sorry, but it's regarding this big book kinda that has like all of the people that in this polling place that are gonna vote, and they have their name and their address, and then there's
Right.
the space so they can sign, so they can vote. Have you guys thought of like making it electronically or something like that, rather than flipping the pages over and over looking for the name and
So,
comparing the IDs?
to answer your question, there was just a bill passed in the legislature, just signed by Governor Ricketts yesterday, I believe,
Okay.
that does allow for electronic poll books. Now, as with anything, there's a cost that comes with that.
Absolutely.
And there's other technology, I will be honest, the electronic poll books is a nice to have, but not an essential function moving forward. And there are other technology items that would be higher on the priority list.
Yeah.
And so that's where we're at with that, yes. And Iowa uses electronic poll books, I've been over there on election day and seen them. They are nice and they are convenient, but ours are functional.
Absolutely.
So at this point,
Yeah. The other thing that I was thinking is
Sure.
if you're gonna transfer it to an electronic thing, you need to train those people who are, working as a poll worker on how to use those devices.
Absolutely.
And then, to be honest with you, I was the youngest person in
Of
that
course.
room. They were all retired people, and no
course.
offense, but they weren't really, the technology savvy, so.
and we've talked about that, and if we,
Sorry.
yes.
So sorry, but
We
that's,
have poll worker training, and yes, if we have poll worker training, and if we were ever to make a major shift like that, one of the things we would almost have to consider is doing like a mock election or something, at least maybe for a couple hours
I
or
have to train
something.
my dad on how to send a picture as a text, so I
Anything else, Brian?
No, I don't think so.
Thank you very much.
I think we're good on that, thank you very much.
you.
And if you have any questions, please let us know. Yes, sir.
Yeah, we will. We'll have you back, because we have a facilities conversation on Brian with you, but that'll be probably post-election, and, we'll have
That'll
you
be-
back for a presentation on that as that goes forward.
That'd be great.
I know you've got front burner stuff like the election to deal with.
Right,
so,
so, and I would just say on that note, we'll be happy to come back, something to kind of put in the back of your mind. I watch the board meetings, I know everybody's out of space, it seems like, in the county, certain
yeah,
departments.
space is at a premium.
But before the next presidential election,
But we'll continue this conversation.
Conversation.
Thank you. It's a
very
pleasure doing
good,
business
thank you
with
very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for coming, folks. We do have Douglas County Emergency Management Agency here. This is gonna be the brief part of our public safety bond update. You guys are moving into a new home. This isn't so much budget, but what, if anything, can you tell us about that?
Well, we're looking forward to
Oh.
it.
Identify yourself.
Oh, thank you. Paul Johnson, Director of the Douglas County Emergency Management Agency. Yes, looking forward to making that change out to the old Fitz home. We have a meeting coming up Friday at 2 p.m. with Jeff McGill and the Public Works team to discuss some of the interior things, what we need and what we desire for our functionality out there. We just want to make sure it's consistent, especially with, I know that Kent has ideas out there too. We want to make sure that we're on the same page.
Right.
And so,
Have you had a chance to do a walkthrough?
no, we're waiting for that.
Okay.
We'd like that.
I go out, I don't know, every week or so, and the next time I do, I'd like to have you along. I've taken different stakeholders through their sections. I think you'll be impressed with what it is. But also, I have a friend who works over at UNMC, and he was on the committee that looked at the new cancer center. And he noticed in one of his walkthroughs, they had just blocked out the thing, that the door was like that. And he goes, can these beds get through that door? And they said, no, they actually couldn't. No one had measured the door and measured the bed. So they had to rip out all the doors on the entire hospital and put ones in. I want to make sure that your desk can get through your door or whatever, so we'll go out and look at it.
No, we're glad to do that.
Okay. Anything else?
No, that's it.
Anything else from emergency management? And your
Hamida, yeah, let me introduce. Hamida won't be with us for long. She's been with us this semester, and we've really treasured her input. She's got great ideas and just wonderful things, and learning how emergency management works. And just we get a lot of interns, and I tell you, she's top shelf. Now we're losing her. She's going to be working for the mayor's office.
No, you're not. I'm still gonna volunteer for you guys.
Hot dog.
Yeah.
All right.
Where do you go to school?
UNO. I'm graduating this May with emergency management.
Very good.
Great.
She's vice president of student body there.
Ex officially 2 days ago. Yeah.
Congratulations.
Thank
Well,
you.
welcome. Unless anyone else has anything else, we're going to dispense with the strategic planning and other business portions of the agenda and call it a day. Anyone? Thank you. Thanks.